Welcome to Comics with Dan. I'm going to be reviewing Kosher Mafia #1. Kosher Mafia is a story about the Jewish mob and the anti-Semitism in the United States leading up to World War II. This story takes place in Cleveland, Ohio, in particular, and follows two main characters, Howard Berkowitz, who is the bookkeeper of the Kosher Nostra, and the Ephraim Gold, who is an enforcer for the Jewish mob. The first look provided by Mad Cave does not provide a lot of sort of insight into what the plot of this story is, apart from in the solicitation that we see that the bookkeeper finds himself on the wrong end of an enforcer's gun. But I think that it's probably better that way, that they aren't showing their hand, because the plot of this story is fantastic. And I think that a preview might sort of ruin it for folks that want to check the book out. So I'm excited that it's going to be a mystery for a lot of people, but I urge you to pick it up because I loved it. It was really great. So the story's about Howard Berkowitz, who, like I said, is a bookkeeper for the Jewish Mafia, and he raises some concerns about the treatment of Jewish citizens and businesses in the area to his bosses, the leaders of the Kosher Nostra. Rather than addressing the problem or trying to help, which they're absolutely in a position of power to help, they decide to send Ephraim Gold, their enforcer, to Howard to take care of the problem. So that's basically the extent of what we know about the story. And I was able to read an advanced copy, which I was really excited about. And the story does not end there. But I want to keep this spoiler free, and I want you to pick up the book. So it was fantastic. I will say that initially, when we meet these two characters, Howard and Ephraim, they are, you would imagine that they just seem like they're complete polar opposites of each other. And as we go through the story, we learn that maybe they're not so different after all, which I think is just really, really great writing by writer David Hazan. David Hazan has some really excellent attention to detail. For example, he uses, in the beginning of the book, he uses the Hebrew calendar. So right off the bat, you get the impression that this isn't going to be a poorly researched book focused solely on action, but rather that it will be something that has some historical accuracy to it, which I really enjoy. Traditionally, the Shema prayer is a prayer that Jewish people pray frequently, but also in particular is used as a Jewish person's last words when possible. Howard, he says this prayer when Ephraim has his gun pointed at him. I think that that's just such excellent detail, and really just goes to show that this isn't going to be a book that's written to sell books, but rather a truly historical nonfiction book that is going to have a lot of real life sort of feel to it, even if the actual story itself is fiction. Hazan also uses some nonlinear storytelling, which when that's not done properly, it can really confuse a reader and make things difficult. But I think that Hazan does it really well here, and I think it helps with how the story is formulated. So I think it was executed well, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. The art by Sammy Cavella and Ellie Wright was really well done. If I had to compare to anyone, it would probably be Chris Samney, who did work on lots of things, but in particular Daredevil. The art really reminded me of that. What I really like about this style is sort of the thicker lines used that make you feel really aware that you're reading a comic book, but don't sacrifice any of the realism that's been worked into the art. It's not an overly realistic art style, and it's not an overly stylized art style, but a really good blend that you still feel like you're reading a comic book, which is just great. And I thought the art was really well done. if I did have one concern, it was sort of some of the backgrounds in some of the panels felt like they got less attention than others. Oftentimes that can be done, to emphasize a particular person or spot in the panel. But I didn't get the impression that it was done that way, just because the panels that were chosen to have essentially no background to it, or no detail in the background, rather, that it didn't really give me the feeling that it was trying to point me towards something. The art didn't. So it sort of came off as some of the panels were an afterthought, or it felt a little incomplete. So Wright's colors are really great. In the flashback panels, she uses sort of like almost a sepia tone, which allows the readers to remember that they're reading a flashback section. And because there's a few of those in this story, it really helps Hazan with his nonlinear storytelling. But then the colors apart from that were just well done, and again remind me of Javier Rodriguez and Matt Wilson, who colored for Chris Samney in his Daredevil series. I think that, and I mean that in the highest amount of praise, because I love Chris Samney. So their art really reminded me of that. I have the same criticism for the backgrounds for the colors as I do the pencils. In the panels that sort of felt incomplete and almost like afterthoughts, the colors chosen sort of baffled me a little bit. There's one panel in particular, and it's a really intense moment in an intense scene, and the background of the one panel is just this bright orange and yellow gradient, and to me that sort of takes me out of the intensity of the situation and how serious it is. I just wasn't sure what the intention behind choosing that as the background was, but it did sort of take me out of the way that I think that David Hazan was pointing me in his writing. Overall, I mean, when you put aside some of the issues in the backgrounds of some of the panels, it is a really well drawn book. There's lots of really, really good art, and overall, I think all the artists on this book were really great. As like I said, I do think that some of the backgrounds could have used a little more attention, but otherwise, it was a really gorgeous book. The letters by Simon Ballin were effective, but weren't all that creative. We saw a few sound effects, and they were well done when they were there, but there wasn't a lot. And I do feel that there were probably some situations that they could have been used and were not. And then there really wasn't any differentiation in the letters based on which character was speaking, how the character was speaking. I mean, there was some, enlarging of the letters whenever someone was yelling, maybe a little bit of the speech bubble getting sort of blown out to make sure that you knew that the character was yelling. But outside of that, it seemed like very standard lettering. Now, I will say that Ballin does a really good job of which words to bold, so as to give you this sort of proper direction, how to inflect the voices that are being used. So I thought that was really well done. It made for a really, really smooth read, which I think is something that gets overlooked in letters a lot, is that how using those bolded words can really impact how the book reads. Just because I think that the reader's naturally drawn to emphasize those bolded words, and if they're not placed properly or a writer doesn't use them at all, it can be a little more challenging of a read when that's not there. I don't want to reveal too much about Kosher Mafia, but in the end, it's a story about doing the right thing, particularly in a world that's not black and white. I love one quote in particular, and I won't say who it's from, but the quote is, "Piety doesn't put food on the table and a roof over your head," which I think really just encapsulates what this book is, and that's a reflection of when doing the wrong thing for the right reasons becomes the right thing to do. which I think that's the message that Hazan and the team are going for with this story. I thought this book was great. I can't wait to get my hands on issue number 2. It's going to be I think it's going to be a blast till the end. The final order cutoff date for Kosher Mafia is July 8th, and it's going to be in stores August 7th. So make sure you get it on your pull list so that your local comic store will have a copy set aside for you. It's from Mad Cave Studios. It was really, really well done, and I had a blast reading it. Make sure you like the video, make sure that you subscribe, check out these other videos here, and thank you for watching.